Hello and welcome to PhotoPoints3d. This website and application will take a 2D photo and convert it into a 3D point cloud suitable for inner crystal engraving. Now, it's not general purpose. It's designed specifically for lasers that use the RK-CAD software, and it does not work with anything else. So please don't try to use it as a general object converter. It does not produce a solid model object. It produces a point cloud object that's special for RK-CAD and RK-CAD only. Now, this software was designed to meet the needs of the casual user who will be using it to create 3D pictures inside crystals using a UV or other laser. And it is, however, not the premier software out there. The premier software out there is called Cockpit3D, and I still recommend that software, and there's a link here on the homepage of PhotoPoints3D to go check it out. There's a video that I made that explains the whole process, and it is significantly different software compared to PhotoPoints3D. PhotoPoints3D has a lot of features, but it's still very basic, and we'll go over some of that when we get into it. But if you are really serious and want professional software, then I definitely suggest you go check out Cockpit3D. When you do that, use the code LIGHTMADE, that's LIGHTMADE, on their sign-up page if you go for a trial, and they'll give you some extra perks for that. So let's get into PhotoPoints3D. This is the landing page, and it'll look something like this. It is subject to change. But down here at the bottom, there's a button that when you click it will go to the real PhotoPoints3D tool. And right here is where you're probably watching this video if you didn't watch it straight from YouTube. So I'm going to click that button and we're going to go into the site. And this is it here. And let me just go over the basic parts of it for you. This is where you would choose an image to convert. Once it comes in, you can adjust the final crystal size, and this also affects the final image size because it tries to fit it the best it can to the crystal using the longest side of the image, and it's aware of the content. So if you have some blank area around the sides, it'll ignore that. This is also where you set your crystal margins. So we have X, Y, and Z for the crystal, X, Y, and Z for the margins. The way this software looks at the crystal, Z is the depth from the front of the viewer down here to the back of the crystal, X is across, and Y is up. So you want to set your crystal sizes appropriately. Once you get it into RK-CAD, you can rotate it around to fit the actual crystal orientation you're going to use while engraving. The next section here is your image controls. I'm not going to go over these in detail, but you have brightness, contrast, gamma, and a button to reset it if you don't like what you've done. I'll just make a mention that this affects the preview image, which you'll see here in a second. It also affects the 3D point cloud in real time, so you can see the effect that your image controls are having on the final point cloud. This is where you would set your point cloud density. This is the number of points that is going to be used, and it sets them in X and Y and also Z, although it's not shown here in the website, but it sets the distance between the points. Now, that definitely affects how many points are created based on the size of the crystal. The closer the points are together, in other words, the smaller this number, the more points are going to be generated, and conversely, the larger the number, the further the points are going to be apart, therefore fewer points are generated. So the effect this has on the crystal is twofold. One is that the more points you have, the better the resolution of your image is going to be. The sharper it is, the more detail it's going to show. But the expense of that is that the more points you have, the longer it takes to burn. You don't care about that, then don't worry about it. Go for a nice density. The other thing is that the more points you have, the whiter the whites are going to look. compared to less density because there's going to be more black area around the points. So 0.05 millimeters is where we start out. This is a good value for UV lasers. If you happen to be using a green laser, then 0.07 is probably a better number for you because the dots are much bigger. You can go down to 0.04. I burn a lot of crystals at 0.04, and that's fine. I don't recommend you go below 0.04, but you can certainly play with it. The risk you run when going smaller is that the points will start to run together, and you may end up cracking the crystal. So once you've loaded your image, you're going to click this Build and View 3D button, and the depth estimation image is going to run, and after a couple of minutes, you'll see the preview in the point cloud along with all your margins and crystal size. You can add text to the layout once you've generated the model. You'll have to click this little button right here to say you want to add text. You can move the model up and down in the crystal, assuming that there is free space to do so. This is where you would type in your text. Here would you select your font. There's a variety of fonts available to cover most of the different popular styles. Here you can set your text height. The width of the text is going to be set proportional based on the font. So a thinner font or a fatter font is going to take up more space. The system will theoretically flag you if it can't fit it into the crystal for the height and font that you've chosen and the amount of characters. So you might have to modify that. The text depth adjusts the amount of Z that you have in the text, so that would be the depth of the text from front to back. And here you can adjust the text position from front to back. You can either use the slider or type in a number. You can position the text below or above the model. The text pad is the amount of distance from the margin. So this would be on the bottom margin if you have the text below. If the text is above, this would become the top margin. The gap to model is the amount of space that you want to leave between the model and the text. And that would be either the bottom of the text or the top of the text, depending on where you position it. Once you have your text selected, you can click Build Text Preview. That'll build the text points and put them into the preview. And at that point, if you don't change the text, the actual characters, or you don't change the font, or you don't change the height or the depth, so any of these right here, you can still move it around, position it, change the padding, etc., without having to rebuild the text. But if you want to change what it says, a different font, change the height or the depth, you will have to click this to rebuild the text. Once you get to the view, you have some presets for looking at what you created. You can also use the mouse to click and drag around in this preview to get various views. I'll show you that. And then once you're happy with the model and the way it looks, the point cloud and the text and everything, then you'll want to click this box here, say that you're ready to pay and download. The cost to download the object file is $5.99. Right now the default comes up with a point cloud name for the file. It will pick up the name of the image that you load. So if you load dog.png, this will read dog in here, and the export will be dog.obj. Or you can overwrite it if you don't like that. Once you click this button here, you can see that the PayPal buttons are going to come up, and here you would pay for the image. And once you've paid for it and you've completed the PayPal correctly, this export object button will light up. It takes a few seconds, so just be patient. And once you do that, you can click the export object, and down here you'll see that it's going to start to export. You'll see a little progress indicator, and then once it's done, it will download in your browser like any other file you download in the browser. Now, if the download happens to fail for some reason, you're able to re-click Export Object. Sometimes the server gets busy, so you'll be able to re-click this. But you only get one download per payment. So once you change anything else in the file here, you're going to lose the ability to do the download. So what's important about that is that if you go away from the browser or you close it, something happens and you don't get the export, and trying it again doesn't help, then you're going to have to start over and unfortunately pay again. So just be aware of that. All right, so it is totally free to load your image and play with it, see what it's going to look like. The only charge is when you do the actual download. Now, what's important about the density here is that in RK-CAD, you will also have a density number for the X and Y and the Z. You want to set, it's called L delta in RK-CAD. You want to make sure that whatever you chose here is what you also choose in RK-CAD. It's also important that you get your size right here because you cannot resize it in RK-CAD. RK-CAD will actually let you resize it, but when you do that, you're going to change the distance between the points and the density, and things are not going to end up looking like you expect. So just remember that whatever you choose here, you want to also use those same numbers when we get to RK-CAD. Okay, so let's go ahead and choose a file. I'm going to click Choose File. It's going to go somewhere on your hard disk. This is my pictures directory. I'm going to use my picture of the dog here, and I'm going to load it. Now, what's important about these pictures is that, first of all, they have to be a JPEG or a PNG or a BMP, but also what's important is that this tool has no ability to remove the background. It also has no ability to put the picture into any kind of a high density or high definition mode. So you want to make sure that if you don't want a background, like I don't want here, that you remove it before you download it in here, because this tool doesn't have the ability to do that. There are lots of free tools out on the web to do it. You can also use Photoshop and other photo editing apps to do it. Just lots of ways you can eliminate the background automatically, or you can do it manually if you have those skills. The other thing you want to make sure is that you have a nice sharp image, good resolution. It could be color, it could be black and white. Really doesn't matter because the software is going to turn it into black and white anyway. But the better image you give this, the better the output is going to be. The maximum file size you can upload is 4 megabytes, so just keep that in mind. So I'm going to click this Buddy Small here and click Open. Okay, and it's going to give me the black and white preview. Now, like I said here, I can adjust the brightness, the contrast, and the gamma before I get to the crystals, but I really have found that there's no point in worrying about what it looks like here unless it looks really bad, because when you generate the crystal, it's going to look a little bit different, and you're going to want to readjust that here anyway, so I would just ignore that for now. What you do want to do, however, before you build it is set your crystal size. So I've got 50 by 50 by 50 is set as the default. That's a pretty common size. I've got 5 millimeter margins all the way around, so you don't want to get too close to the edge of the crystal, and I think that's okay. If you want to change it, you can, and you can also change it later. You don't have to change it now because the model, when it comes in, it can be resized in this software without having to do a rebuild. Okay, so I'm going to do Build and View 3D. I'm going to leave my density at 0.05 for now, and just click Build and View 3D, and you can see up here you've got running the depth engine, and there's also a status bar down here because sometimes you're going to want to scroll down to look at things. You can also see the same status down here at the bottom. So we're going to let that run for a while, and we'll come back after it has completed running. Okay, so it's finished, and you can see here it says 3D preview is ready, and you can scroll down here to see the 3D preview. I'm going to uncheck this box for now, and you can see here I've got the picture of the dog, and this is a simulation of the point cloud. It's not the real point cloud, so just be aware that when you burn it, there's a lot of factors that also affect it that are beyond our control, and you're just going to have to learn your laser and learn what works. But once you're here, you've got various views. The default is the front. You can change it to the back view. You can change it to the left view. You can change it to the right view. You can change it to a top view. And I'm just going to go back to the front view here. You can also click and drag here in the preview to get any kind of a view you want of it. So you can just kind of move around and see it there. I'm going to go back to front. The other thing you can do is zoom, and the scroll wheel on the mouse zooms in and out, so you can zoom in to see some of the detail if you want. All right, so I'm going to zoom back out, and you can see here you've got your crystal margins. I'm going to scroll my page down a little bit here. So you've got this red line, that is the outline of the crystal. This green line is the margin. So for example, if I wanted to make this a little bit bigger and my margin a little bit smaller, I could come up here to my margins, and let's say I want to make it 3 all the way around. I can put in a 3 here, 3 here, and a 3 here, and this is X, Y, and Z. And you can see here that not only is my margin smaller, but it's also enlarged my model for me. So we can leave that here for now. Let's go ahead and put some text in. So the first thing I'm going to do is click Add Text, and that is going to put in a little blue placeholder to show you where the text would go, and this represents the current height of the text, which the default is 6 millimeters. If I change this to 8 millimeters, you can see that this box got bigger, and you can see that it automatically moved the model up. Now this works for a lot of combinations, most common combinations. Sometimes though, if your model gets too big, your text gets too big, they will start to overlap. So just be careful of that. The software can only do so much of trying to fit it in. Okay, I'm going to go back to 6. And you'll see that it changes. Now it didn't move the model down. That's okay. I can move the model manually with this slider here. I can go up and I can go down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and type in text. My dog's name is Buddy, and you see it came up automatically. I've been typing it a lot. I'm going to select a font. There's a pretty decent selection of fonts here. Once you've selected a font, you can obviously change it if you don't like the way it looks. I like Dom Casual, so I'm going to pick that font. I'm going to leave the height at 6. I'm going to change the depth though a little bit from 1 millimeter. I think it's a little thin. Maybe I'll go to 3. And I think all the rest of everything I want it below. The gap to model's okay, and the text pad from the margin is okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click Build Text Preview. It's going to take a second to do that, and you see there it's brought in Buddy underneath. Now, if that looks a little small, which I think it does, let's just change the height a little bit. Let's go to maybe a 9. And you can see it instantly changes to a little bit bigger and moves the model up. If I want a little different model spacing, I can again use this slider to change it within the limits. Okay, so I'll leave Buddy right there. And if I want to look at, say, what this looks like from the left, I can look here. Because the text you see on edge, you can't really read it here, but it's up at the front of the crystal. If I want to move it back a little bit, I have this Z position here, so I can slide this over just a little bit to move it back right. Nope, that's too far. Let me just click on it here. How about right there? Let's look at that from the front again. So that's going to bring that Buddy back from the very front of the crystal back to the front of the model. And I like the way that looks. Okay, so once I am happy with this, and I'm just going to, before I do that though, I just want to show you, I think this looks a little washed out, a little too bright. So I'm going to use my image controls here to adjust that. Now it's only going to affect the model, not the text. Text always comes out in white. Right, so I am going to maybe just play with the gamma a little bit. For those of you that don't know what gamma is, gamma affects kind of the mid-tones. so it tends to help things from being washed out or bring out detail. And if I raise the gamma, it's actually going to make the picture a little bit darker. And you can see when I do that, I've got a little more contrast here. I brought out some detail. If I want even more contrast, I can bring up the contrast controls. You don't want to get too contrasty, so I'm just going to reset them back to 0. I'm going to bring my gamma back up again. Okay, and that looks pretty good. I might I think I'll leave my brightness where it is. I think that's okay. But you can play with these controls to your heart's content until you get a preview here that you like the look of. Once you're happy with it, then you can come down here and click this. I'm happy with the point cloud. I'm ready to pay and download. Okay, so important again, don't close your browser until the export completes. So I'm going to click this. You can see here I've got the PayPal buttons come up. I'm going to pay with a credit card. I do not need to have a PayPal account if I use this. If I use PayPal, then I have to use my PayPal account. I'm just going to show you how the debit card part works. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to open up down here. You scroll down. You're going to enter all your information in here. And then when you come back, this export object will light up. Now sometimes it takes the information and it goes away and it comes back and it still wants the card number or something again. So if this button doesn't light up down here, this export object button, scroll back up a little bit and make sure that none of these boxes are in red, then the button will light up as long as you paid correctly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and once I do that, unfortunately I'm not going to let you see my payment information, so I am going to come back once it's all paid. So I have all of my payment information entered. I'm going to click the pay button, and you'll see that it's going to spin, and then after a few seconds this export object comes up. It's all lit up now, so I'm going to click it. And you can see here that it's telling me it's preparing the object export on the server. So this little indicator is going to move around to tell you that it's still working. And once it completes, it will kind of go all the way over to the right. And you'll see a message here telling you that the object export was successful. And over here in my browser, you can see it downloaded that buddy small image. All right, and so that is the basics of how to use PhotoPoints 3D.